All right, yeah. So, like I said, my name is Mike Nelson, K5YX. As you said, I'm the North Texas Section Emergency Coordinator, among other roles in my volunteer life. And today we're going to talk about the July 2025 flooding in Central Texas in the Hill Country, and we're going to talk about the storm and flooding itself, and then where amateur radio contributed in the relief efforts and search efforts. So. First, a little orientation. We're going to be talking about Kerr County, Kendall County, and also into Gillespie County. The flooding occurred in other areas, but these were kind of the areas we're going to be focusing on. If you look at the rainfall chart for that storm system, you can see that Kerr County and that area, kind of in the middle of the map there, got 8 to 12 inches of rain. There were areas to the east, especially around Jasper and into Louisiana, that had much more rainfall. But what contributed here was the terrain, the hills and valleys. As that 8 to 12 inches of rain fell in a short period of time, it all went downhill into those valleys and collected real fast. And these rivers and river valleys became just raging torrents in a matter of minutes, just a very short period of time. You can see there's several rivers affected here: the Como River, Blanco, Guadalupe, San Marcos River, the Camp Mystic, which was in the news a lot. This took a lot of casualties. Is up where it says Hunt. It's just going to be south of there a little bit. So, one of the factors, first of all, like I said, the area it affected, we're talking about July 4th to July 7th. So it's that holiday weekend period, Friday going into the weekend. Texas Hill Country, you heard a lot about Kerr County, but again, it was other counties in that area as well. One of the deadliest freshwater flooding events, at least 139 lives lost. And the big factor here was what was referred to as hyper rapid river rises. In other words, the rivers and creeks rose very, very fast. Plus, it was in the early morning hours. A lot of people were asleep, again, on that holiday weekend, on a holiday Friday. What caused all this rain? Well, it was remnants of Tropical Storm Barry that stalled over the region. This convective vortex formed and just kept that moisture flowing and circulating over and over the region, just dumping large amounts of rain. If you look at some of the rainfall totals, 5 to 11 inches with just a few hours. Around here, sometimes we get heavy rainfalls. Our rain gauges will read up to 2 inches an hour. And that's, I think a lot of us have seen that, and that's a heavy rainfall. Imagine doubling that up to 4 inches an hour of just an incredible amount of rain in a short period of time. Again, factors that contributed to the rapid water rise. This area had undergone a lot of drought preceding this rain event, so a lot of the ground was hard packed surface. So when the rain fell, instead of absorbing into the soil, it just ran off into the low-lying areas. The Guadalupe River, you can see its flow rate went from its normal 8 to 10 cubic feet per second to over 120,000 cubic feet per second. Just incredible amounts of water flow. You see in Hunt, Texas, the river surged 26 feet in just 45 minutes. In Kerrville, it rose to 26 feet in 45 minutes. In Comfort, Texas, 31 feet in just 90 minutes. And that arrived as a wall of water, again, before dawn when people were asleep. Kerr County had the most number of casualties. A lot of those were in those camps. That area in Kerr County has a lot of camps. It's a beautiful area in among the hills and the river valleys and those rivers flowing there. It makes a great place for summer camps, and they were full. And but when those low-lying areas just became inundated with these torrents of water and these rapidly rising rivers, and any of the campers that were right there along the riverbanks were just and asleep at the time. we're just overwhelmed with nowhere to go. If you look at this is Camp Mystic again, you can see, where's my old pointer here? You see all these hills surrounding it. Again, imagine those hard packed dirt, not absorbing water, all this rainfall flowing like a funnel down into this river valley. A lot of these camps that were right here along the river, right on the banks, were the ones that got washed away. Some of these camps, these cabins up on the hill, the water didn't reach that level, got close. Most fatalities were down here in the cabins and the camp areas along the banks. Beyond Kerr County, Travis County, the Sandy Creek neighborhood, you see a lot of structural damage, 9 fatalities. San Angelo had a lot of damage. River flooding caused sewer to overflow and spill, so a large sewage and wastewater spill. Over 12,000 structures affected across central Texas. Also a big impact to the agriculture, a lot of ruined crops. So big economic and human and structural impact. On the rescue and recovery effort, there was the immediate response. Local, state, federal agencies were all involved. Of course, local and county first, and then the state rolled in pretty quick, and then some federal agencies as well, as disaster declarations were approved on the federal level. A lot of private and organizational groups as well stepped in, and you can see, a year later, a lot of just citizens contributing towards the relief efforts and the trying to restore the area. $150 million and raised in donations. A lot of that distributed to survivors and those directly impacted. You can see just a little bit on response on the state level. More than 20 state agencies were deployed, and over 2,200 personnel. Some of those here from Denton County. There are some people, I think a lot of you know Eric Gildersleeve. He's with the county. He's also with the Denton County Club. He was deployed as a communication, I think it's a ComL or a Comtech down there with the state response. He didn't go there, and I'll note that the state response didn't rely on ham radio, amateur radio much at all. They brought their own communication resources, but as we'll see in a few minutes, the ham radio response was really used and called upon by the local and the county organizations and governmental agencies as opposed to the state level. See a lot of non-governmental organizations, Texar, the Baptist Man, Red Cross. I saw a lot of organizations came together. So, why was amateur radio, needed? What was the communication disaster in among this other natural disaster? Well, a lot of power outages, downed power lines, communications, and cell infrastructure was taken out, damaged, or overloaded. So just the traditional communication lines into and out of the area was just down. Also, just the natural terrain, a lot of dead zones. Again, this is the hill country. There's a lot of high areas and low-lying areas. So there's going to be a lot of dead zones from even just cell phone or radio communications. And that actually became kind of a challenge to the amateur radio response in some of the times that we'll talk about. Again, areas activated on July 4th. Again, pretty much just operated at the behest of the local and county emergency managers as opposed to as a state response, through state races. So where did amateur radio contribute? Well, the search and rescue teams, we'll talk about each of these a little bit, shelter operations, as well as health and welfare traffic. A lot of health and welfare nests were stood up and a lot of messages passed. So mobilization. On the 4th, the West Gulf Division Vice Director and the South Texas Section Manager They started making inquiries to officials in the area, offering up amateur radio help. Again, the area's DEC for District 6 also made their services available. In Kerr County, the area's EC was on vacation, so his assistant stepped up and took charge of the area's group. Initially, the Kerr County Emergency Management Office said, we're good right now. That's going to change a little bit. Kind of a takeaway from here is the importance of being well organized, whether your areas or races, whatever, or just your club. Good organization, good leadership, being able to have more than one person, that's in a leadership position and can take charge. Like I said, in this case, the Kerr County EC was out of town on vacation. So somebody else in the group took up and took charge of their other group. So flexibility, availability to adapt to changing needs is a real important takeaway. So beyond Kerr County, in District 12, Ruth was contacted from Kendall County for Aries aid. She sent several operators out to help with the search and rescue teams, communications there. A real important note that when the groups were activated, they were told to wear sturdy boots and clothing, have walking stick if they can, bring their own food and water. Bring your own radio equipment. Big takeaway is be ready to be self-sufficient. If we're activated into an area, you can very well expect that your clothes, your food, your water, and your equipment is going to be whatever you're bringing there with you. So just be prepared to be self-sufficient for a period of time. So in Kendall County, Friday, there were 10 to 12 operators activated, mainly assisting search and rescue teams along the river and in the low-lying areas and draws where their communications were just blocked by the terrain or by the fact that the cell phone and the conventional telecommunications infrastructure was out. Real important note here is that while they put 2 ham radio operators with each search team. The reason was if they could, in a low-lying area, could get a radio signal out of the area, one of the people could go up on top of a hill and be a relay. They also utilize crossband repeat with mobile radios. So set up a crossband repeater on a high ground where you can keep somewhat of a line of sight from the low end. And use that to help get out. By the end of the day, Friday, that Kerrville or Kendall County group was released, and they were set up for Saturday and Sunday if needed. So quick stand up, worked in areas for the immediate search response, and were ready if needed by following days. I'll take it a step back to leading up to the storm. Amateur Radio contributed with our traditional Skywarn mode as the storms and rainfall were coming into the area. In the Kendall County, they have a strong group, the Kendall Amateur Radio Society cars. They activated their weather nets and assisted the Kendall County Emergency Operations Center with being eyes on the ground and given ground truth about the flooding and the weather observations. So the very vital component there for the local emergency managers again on county level. Just keeping them situationally aware. Real vital role we play there. So in the search and rescue operations, again, as they went into search and rescue mode and recovery on the 5th and 6th of July. Amateur radios, like I say, we're paired up with over 100 tactical field teams. So this is where our operations really ramped up. Search and rescue personnel, firefighters, cadaver dog teams, several different teams were deployed, and ham radio was right there with them providing communications. The command posts and staging areas were really where our net controls were, and they helped relay traffic, everything from the status of the search efforts to logistical traffic to health and welfare traffic, back to those command posts. So a lot of message relays. Again, helping to fill in those gaps where the traditional communications infrastructure was down. A little bit on overcoming some infrastructure failures. Interoperability gap. There were several first responder groups from outside the affected counties that came in as far as mutual aid agreements. These agencies and groups don't always talk on the same type of radios and frequencies and even bands or systems. So amateur radio also was able to step in and fill a role in kind of in that interoperability mode, to help providing either hardware radio operators to help get span those communication gaps. Talking about health and welfare traffic, again with the local cell networks and traditional comm networks offline, a lot of health and welfare traffic in and out of the areas. Families trying to find out how the loved ones were. Assisted with shelter operations. There were a number of shelters set up and tore down, and some of them had to move. So ham radio stepped up and provided both communications and logistics support for the Red Cross shelters. And again, in some cases, helped set up and tear down as some of these centers had to move around. So what were some of the capabilities? Everything from mobile radios, portable, handheld radios, go boxes, GMRS. Remember, we're communicators. Primarily we use ham radio, but that doesn't mean that's the only thing we can use. If GMRS is going to get the job done and that's what we have available, we can use it. If a county hands us some county radio stash, we can use those too, right? We're communicators. Other clubs did have a communication trader that was really well equipped that was able to help out as well. So what went well? Ham stepped up, man. They were able to provide requested hams and have people on standby to fill in with additional shift if needed. I know that I contacted the South Texas SEC and offered up assistance from North Texas. I had a number of people that were geared up and ready to go if needed. They did not need to call on us, but we were ready to assist if needed. I think West Texas did the same thing. A lot of operators, like I say, stepped up from across different sections, deployed and helped out, for that week long, the 4 or 5 day period. Real important. Before this event happened, this disaster happened, the Kendall Club and the Kendall Area ECC had a close relationship with the emergency management and officials and emergency manager in that county. That was invaluable. Real important lesson here is before something bad happens, make sure we're forming relationships with our emergency management officers, whether it be at the city level, the county level, fire departments, help offer, your clubs and your organizations assistance on community events, right? Get these officials comfortable with our capabilities and our expertise and capabilities, so that when something bad happens, they know they can trust us. And it's not just, somebody coming up to them and they're not familiar with us, so they just tell us to go away, right? Because they don't know what we can do. So real important to have those links set up ahead of time. So what can be approved? More practice with crossband operations. I think most of us know what a crossband repeating is, but if we had to go out and set up our mobile radio right now into crossband mode, how many of us could do that without having to dig up the manual? Remember, in this area, it's not like you can just bring up your phone to bring up an online version of the manual or a YouTube video on how to set up in crossband. The cell networks were down. So better use and practice on setting up a crossband. Look at different ways to get communicate to your operators to get the word out that either to be on standby or to be called up. If our only way traditionally to get a hold of our groups is through a a text message, well, maybe your cell phones are down, and so you need to come up with a different way to get the word out to your people. Also, train on various geolocating tools. We're all almost dependent on our cell phones for mapping and directions. Well, if that's not available because the cell networks are down, how we need to have alternate ways to navigate, figure out where we're at, and get around. So let's look back to our traditional ways of navigating, whether it be map and compass or some other tools. A little quick, almost done here. A little quick of a timeline, kind of high level. You can see operations 4th through about the 9th or 10th. On the 4th, that was that initial operations, and as the 5th and 6th really ramped up, a lot of efforts from ham radio there, and then it spread out a little bit and became more assisting with on a broader geographic area. And then after about 4 or 5 days, the amateur radio effort really wound down with a few exceptions. By the 11th, the teams were demobilized. And of course, we can't, forget in all this, the victims. There's a human element to this that we don't ever want to forget. That's why we do this, to have about the community, right? All right, that's what I have. Hopefully, it was interesting. I'll try to answer questions if you have them.
Anybody in the room with questions?
Mike, this is K5GIL. I'm the Carrollton radio officer for Carrollton Farmers Branch, Addison, Aries Races. About the duration, how long did the hams that responded, the initial hams, how long did they have to activate, just to get an idea of how long they needed to provide water and food? Was it just like a couple of days, 3 days, something like that?
It was just a couple of days, and that kind of goes along with where we tell a lot of our members to have a 72-hour go bag, whether it's just for sheltering at home or if you need to get up and respond. The general rule of thumb that we tell people is to be able to be self-sufficient for 48 to 72 hours, and that's kind of what they saw here.
Did the guys use like commercially available MREs or backpack food, or what was sort of common?
All of the above.
Okay.
After the first about 24 to 48 hours, that's where some of the other shelters were set up, and they were able to get food from the staging areas and stuff. But initially, It's just whatever they could have in their bags.
Got it. Okay. Just as an aside, we're well integrated with our emergency managers, Elliott Reap here in Carrollton. Farmers Branch doesn't have one. We lost the emergency manager this week. They'll be replacing it over time, and we're pretty tight with Addison as well. So we've covered that base. We just need to do a lot of training and getting back in the swing of things. And the crossband is very interesting.
Yeah, the crossband was interesting. We're doing some things, here local with, Meshtastic to, again, provide that, 3rd and 4th level communications, for our served agencies. So, all of those things that you mentioned are in process, but it just, brings it that much more to the.
I guess for navigation, we're going to have to drag out our sextants.
So remember how to read a map. You mentioned Meshtastic and some of the other modes. It's there's a lot of things that have come up in digital type, whether it be messaging or imaging, that you can set up in a field, with field setups and not have to rely on traditional infrastructure. So that those are good things to keep developing and practicing with.
You brought up some interesting challenges here that we'll be talking about. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah.
You're welcome.